explains more or less the information on there.
So, welcome to the Lockheed War Memorial, dedicated to the memory of all who fought here during Charlie War 9, the Great War, the war to end all wars. There surely won't be any more wars after it. Lockheed is well known for its lush and green foliage, especially giant sunflowers seen blooming throughout the town. Over here we have some wild Lockheed flowers and foliage. See that building right over there? That building is notable
Yep.
for being one of the only 3 buildings that left standing after the Siege of Lockheed. Everything else was leveled and unable to be repaired at the time. As in, like, completely leveled, scorched, gone beyond existence. Couldn't even repair
Wow.
them at all. But the only 3 structures remained after the whole thing. It was quite impressive that's one of them. Over here
How
is
did
our
this one survive?
outhouse. What? What was the question?
How how did this one survive?
It was just out far enough away that artillery never really had a reason to target it. It was just barely far enough away that only shots like grazed it, maybe broke it a bit, but never fully scorched it, so it never lost the ability to be repaired.
All right.
This is the outhouse. This is the only outhouse that I'm currently aware of, so if you need a bathroom break, I'd recommend you do it now. If not now, let us know and we'll cycle back to the outhouse.
Okay. Well, it's kind of hard to go with you looking.
Oh yeah, let me just.
Okay. Hold on. Wait. Hold on.
You good over there?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
You good? Okay. Hear another bicycle in the dark. Who's biking? I will never find out. Alright, this is Bullet Boulevard. This intersection was key to Lockheed's resupply during the war. Both the baths and treasuries sent supplies. Very important to have an open logistics line, or otherwise you don't get your stuff that you need in. This is a very key intersection. We thank the Logi men of Baths, Treasury, and Skirvyshire for their support. Each bullet in BMAT was put to good use. Often repairing vehicles, fixing structures, making new things, shooting wardens. You know the deal.
Yep. God bless Logi.
Final days. After the last major battles for Maiden's, Warden's activity died down to minor skirmishes. A wall was created to limit damages. Basically, Wardens would come across, try and do some stuff. We put up a wall. It had some effect where they only really blew up the storage depot and killed a bunker base, but they never really got the town base at all or anything more severe, so mixed success. May all those who died in Lockheed finally rest in peace. This is the factory. Lockheed's demand for M-subs was met by a frontline factory. This helped decrease the logistical load. Basically, a little facility structure there, creating maintenance supplies. Maintenance supply is important because without them, your frontline structures are going to start decaying, and a decayed front line is something really easy for the wardens to push. So we can't be having that now, can we?
No, that was pretty smart.
Last few standing. This is one of the other 3 structures. This is the second of the 3 structures that were left standing throughout the entirety of the war. This one covered the back end of Lockheed. It went down a couple of times, but never went down constantly enough to be scorched. So it's still there. Currently, the homeowners are out as it undergoes renovations. As you can see, there is a hole in the porch, and there's also a hole in the roof in the attic area.
Well, I bet they're glad.
Yes. This is the warehouse of woe. This storage depot was lost for a good month. It was rebuilt many times after severe warden shelling. Very important to keep online because this is the one place where we keep all of our BMATs, vehicles, and supplies that aren't currently actively deployed in the fight. So anything important and everything important is kind of in there if it's not being used. This is a thank you to the generous farmers of Lockheed, whose crops fed soldiers and civilians alike. As their soil became scorched by constant war and artillery fire, we were able to use the land to dig extensive bunker networks using AI tech. This was the backyard battery. Late into the siege of Lockheed, it was defended by a single 150 cannon placed in this area. It was used to deter Warden frigates. It was also used to shell the bridge if too many tanks were coming across, or do counter battery fire if Warden set up artillery guns by the rail bridge. Or
Now that's
on
pretty
down by the
cool.
rail bridge.
A single artillery piece did that.
S. It wasn't incredibly effective, but it was enough to just keep them back.
Right?
So over here, we've got the end of the line. This bridge became a popular infiltration point for both Warden and Colonial partisans, sometimes including tanks. Oftentimes during the severe fighting of the main Lockheed Bridge, Wardens would send a tank or two over here that would then start harassing our Logi vehicles or blow up some of our back rear defenses. That wasn't very fun. We would go hunt down the tanks and then do them the favor of sending 2 tanks over there to do the same to them. Just got a little sign over here, which is a thank you unknown soldier, to all those who fought in Lockheed, but never, where we couldn't get them all down. So many people fought and died in Lockheed.
Understandable.
Rail lines 1. Warden rails were used in the siege of Lockheed to send a battle train into the back end of the town. This battle train went over the tracks, up towards the back of the town, started blowing up bunker stuff, threatened the storage depot, and we had people trying to blow up the rail bridge, but unfortunately they could not get it blown. But the train was also a very timid train, so when a tank repositioned over here, it kind of ran, so neither side really achieved much of what their goals were. This replica bunker is dedicated to Click Lock, the secret weapon of Lockheed builders and maintainers. An actual bunker was placed in out here, and it was used to. Its defenses went all the way down from the bridge, backside of Lockheed, to the town base. Pretty much covered the entire top section up here. Very important bunker location. Very useful in holding the area, but it did get targeted by Warden artillery guns very frequently. This is a brief little memorial dedicated to the 501st and the brave men and women that the individual served with. Over here is a Remember the Legends of Lockheed. Legends of Lockheed were one of the original regiments formed to defend Lockheed back in the beginning of the war. They were very effective in what they did, but unfortunately they did get pushed out of Lockheed, where upon that happening, they kind of got disbanded. Most of the Legends of Lockheed members ended up getting put into other regiments, such as the 11th, but there is still one remaining Legends of Lockheed member that I am aware of. Over here we have a field of names, just kind of bike through, look at each of the signs, see what they were notable for. These are all key players in the siege of Lockheed, and what they were known for doing.
All right.
I want to go up this way. Industrial innovation. One second. Lockheed's industrial potential was realized a few times during the war. Even had a train and collector. This was mostly set up when we first captured Maine's Vale. But unfortunately, a lot of the industry was taken out after the loss of Maiden's Vale and the eventual siege of Lockheed. Lockheed will not fall. This here is Tank Killer Ridge. This is a raised area, became vital to Lockheed defense. Stygian bolt, anti-tank guns, tripod arms, and even a bone saw were set up here. It was very important because if you look out to our west, you'll see that there's an opening of the bridge. So Warden tanks would have to come off that bridge. They could only fit about 2 tanks at a time, and they would come up over to this hill in order to either go south or north on Lockheed. So they would have to get into range of any guns put up here, and we typically had a Stygian bolt, and the usual complement was about 268 guns supporting it, meaning that any tanks that came through, if all the shots penetrated, would pretty much die in one volley. It was also a very good spot because the road dips at the bridge section, meaning that if you don't get the kill, but you hit it in the tracks and you manage to track the tank, it cannot escape the next volley. It will be stuck in that little ditch until they can finish the repairs, which they were never given the chance to finish the repairs. This spot was also very common to be shelled by Warren artillery because they did not like us having all these tank killing guns up on this ridge. Frigates would shell us and Warden artillery guns would aim for this position, but they were not very effective as the anti-tank push guns didn't take a lot of damage from artillery, and we always had more soldiers ready to replace those who died on the guns. That is just a little replica gun of what we had here. We
Okay.
often captured Warden guns and brought them back across, put them on the hill.
Almost like a trophy.
S. And then return the 68 to the Wardens. Want to go this way? Across Crush Cross Bridge for all those who died from vehicular accidents. Typically, it was tanks. If a tank tells you to move and they need a reverse and you don't move, you're going to get crushed. That's just going to kind of happen. It's going to be your fault. Any accidents that weren't those from the tanks are typically from crazy logi drivers trying to get their supplies from point A to point B. This is the secret path. On top of this rock is where colonial snipers held the line, causing significant casualties on the Wardens. Essentially, the snipers would get up to that point on the rocks. There's 2 main paths to getting there. One looping around the island, the other one you can climb the rocks right here. Snipers were effective at taking out the tank commanders, medics, and machine gunners, as those were good prime targets to take out, often causing problems in the Warden organization and making their lives a little bit harder.
I don't want to bother your tour, but I think we have a Legend of Lockheed back there.
Yes, we do.
Thank you for your valiant defense.
That's what they tell me, but I'm just, the real heroes were the ones that were doing the grunt work over here. We lost so many lives on this bridge just by people wanting to cross the bridge. You gotta imagine this place if it's night and there's a snowstorm. You can't see anything in front of you when you're in the truck or a tank or anything else. And you look to the sides and there's no place to really go but off the bridge and sometimes down into the icy waters. So it's really a dangerous position for a lot of the infantry guys here.
Well, God bless them.
Over here we have the sneaky rocks. Both invaders and defenders of Lockheed use the rocks for secret attacks behind lines. Very good at hitting tanks or vehicles moving along the bridge. Good at getting over to the other side of the beaches to go mess with logi lines, steal vehicles, blow up bunkers. Good if you're the ones doing it, bad if you're the ones on the receiving end of it. So, it kind of evens out.
Yeah, the thing about those rocks is that there's a sheer cliff face on the other side of them. So you got to be very careful when you're jumping up and down from there because you could fall to your death real easy.
Yep. So
Those those who worked this front oftentimes had knowledge of how to get up that other people who just came here didn't have. So um, experience was important around here.
it very much was important. Alright, here we are at the other side of the bridge. So let's start this off. A very important location, bunker control. Wardens could set up heavy artillery to shell Lockheed from this position. Colonials could prepare a major assault into the Hex from this position. Very good place to have. Traded hands a whole lot. Wardens wanted it to weaken Lockheed. We wanted it in order to attack Spit Rocks or Maiden's Veil. Very important location to have. Rest in peace to all the bunker bases that were destroyed here. Tons and tons of bases swapped hands, were killed, rebuilt. It was a never-ending battle.
You've got to imagine this place after we came over the bridge. There would be tanks, there would be cranes, there would be construction vehicles, logistic trucks, all trying to get into this one very spot where the bunker base was. So it was pretty rough going.
So this was pretty much like their main area where they pushed
Yes.
pretty much constantly.
If they wanted to get to Lockheed, they had to go across this bridge. It was their only way to Lockheed besides going deep into other hexes and cutting around. I'm sorry, Foxhole connection just blipped there for a second.
No, that's fine.
S.
I was just basically asking as
Well,
y'all were
this
pushing up.
wasn't as important for the wardens as it was for us because the wardens, they could always come down the road real easy from Maiden's Veil. And of course, they had that place well defended and well stocked. But for us getting off this bridge, you got to realize we needed a forward operating point in order to get to the rest of here.
Gotcha. So this was just a starting point for an attack, pretty much.
S. So.
Oh yeah, I'm looking at the map right now. This gives you open to pretty much everything.
You had to have this point in order to go to Main's Veil or Spit Rocks. So any further advances in the region pretty much had to have a bunker set up around this area.
Yeah, so this was vital.
Yes. So the checkpoint colonial bunkers were maintained in this area after the capture of Maidens to allow safe passage of Logi. Pretty much after we captured Mainsville for the first time, we had a bunker here that lasted a long while. It was a good spot for Logi vehicles to stop and refuel if they needed more fuel. It was also a good location for them to escape partisans or incoming tanks because it had AI and AT defenses. It prevented wardens from easily cutting the Logi line and created a speed bump if they ever tried to attack through. I want to cut this way first and then continue onwards. Why Spit Rocks? This is talking about the campaign for Spit Rocks and the importance of it. Spit Rocks allows the Wardens to launch campaigns into Deadlands east side. For Colonials, it gave easy access to Maiden's Veil. Essentially, as long as the Wardens held Spit Rocks, they could threaten our Logi lines up to this bunker way. Threaten Logi lines. They could launch attacks into Loggerhead and keep Loggerhead supplied. They could launch attacks into the Deadlands and cause problems over there. But we would need to take Spit Rocks if we wanted to help secure our Logi line or to make a more coordinated effort on an attack on Maiden's Veil.
Yeah, going a little bit before about the bunker bases. you know, every time we did put a bunker base here, we would be attacked by all sides. Not only Maidensvale from the north, but also Split Rocks from the west. They would come from the west and from the south. And although it's not necessarily so safe to go in those rocks right now, a lot of infantry work, a lot of partisan work, a lot of raised areas. It was a death trap. Um, a little bit of trivia here. If the war would have gone on a week longer, there were plans to put a bunker base right on this road, a little bit south from here, at the Y junction that you can see on your map.
All right.
But the war ended too soon before we could do that.
Well, let me ask you this question real quick. Which side do you think was the deadliest side, being here or being across the river?
Being here, definitely. Because
Okay.
this was right in the gape of the maw, so to say. This was right in their backyard, and it was like knocking a hornet's nest. Over there at Lockheed, it was rough, don't get me wrong. But it was defensible from the bridge because all the disadvantages that I told you about crossing the bridge for us became our advantages when we were on the other side.
Gotcha.
I'm sure that, did you see Tank Hero Ridge?
Yes.
Well, then you know that position, that raised position right there was a very good defensible spot. And we could hit the Warden tanks before they could even hit us.
Now, over here, was there any point where the Wardens actually made like a faction-wide push for this area? If
I
that
don't know.
makes
What do you
sense.
say, Slip?
I mean, there were a lot of. I'm trying to think best way to put this. I don't know if there was a faction-wide push because even though fighting was intense, we were less intense than other major conflict zones, but there were still a lot of assets that were sent to try and either take Lockheed or stop us from taking Maiden's Vale. So there was at least several regiments worth of coordination coming to try and stop us.
So it was pretty much constant fighting.
Yeah.
On a Friday or Saturday, I'd say that for a given multi-pronged push by the Wardens, they probably expended maybe 100 crates of shirts a night.
So how many shirts are in a crate?
10.
Golly, really?
1,000 shirts a night they probably sent towards this area on a major multi-pronged push.
Okay. And so with the push, what was the main goal of the push? Were y'all meant to link up with somebody else or just kind of get in through the rear of the front?
Well, for them or for us?
For y'all?
For us, more or less our orders and what we did is basically to secure Lockheed and to make a steady advance here if we can. Again, like what the lieutenant said, this wasn't necessarily the biggest priority of the colonial high command in Calakai. This was very much a secondary front. The big push came out west and east of here, through Westgate into Farinac Coast, and then also through the Treasury into Weathered Expanse.
Yeah,
We
but
were
those
never a
pushes,
priority.
those
But
pushes
we were
probably
a
wouldn't have
priority
been.
for the people who were here.
Well, I was about to say, those pushes probably wouldn't have been anywhere near successful without y'all, though.
Well, as Slippery would probably tell you, this place was very strategically important, I think, because so long as Lockheed held, they couldn't push our major logistic hubs in the Drowned Vale, in the Baths, and in the Treasury.
Uh,
They had to get through this place first.
well, we'll get
Okay.
into that a bit more as one of the final stops in the tour when you cycle back in through Lockheed. I'll
Yeah.
go into it a bit more detail about why
Okay.
Lockheed was important to hold. Uh, but continue on with the tour. We got a bit more about Spit Rocks here. So, the guns of Spit Rocks. During the late end of the war, Spit Rocks had multiple heavy artillery guns to destroy bunkers in this location. It's what made pushing from here real hard towards the end of it, because the moment we would push across and start getting a bunker up as our new forward spawn point, it would start raining 150 shells, and 150 shells are very effective against a tier 1 bunker, especially when there's 3 cannons shooting at you at once. It kind of wiped any forward attempts, unless we had a moment of break between them. Taking Spit Rocks, we eventually managed to take Spit Rocks in the end. Spit Rocks was a warden fortress requiring multiple raids and large attacks to break. It was there was several cores, I think roughly about like 4 or 5 cores around Spit Rocks. There was concrete with them, and the forward layer was about 2 or 3 layers deep, where we had to constantly do little raids and demolitions to make little holes in the outer concrete layer, whilst the backside was continuously burned by partisan raids. After enough weakening, we were able to take it out and eventually kill the guns that were up there in Spit Rocks, making any future advances a lot easier. We're gonna bike this way a little bit. Oh, this is just some stuff about the Warden tours. We need the tour Warden through the town. Okay. Why Maidens? The importance of Maiden's Vale. Maiden's Vale was an important frontline refinery town, able to fuel the ever-hungry factories of war. Essentially, if you controlled Maiden's Vale, you could produce loads and loads of BMATs and lots of fuel. The BMATs, if we were to take Maiden's Vale, would likely go to the factories back in the Baths and the Treasury to produce more shirts, ammos, guns, weapons, whatever was needed. While the Wardens had it, they could use it to send back to their mass production factory 1 hex behind them, allowing them a whole lot more freedom of weapon production. Over here we have the road to Maidens. The terrain greatly favored the Wardens with hills for ambushes and multiple layers of in-place guns. Essentially, if you look on the map, it's one straight road up to Maiden's Vale. Unfortunately for us, it was a difficult push, as there was typically about 2 to 3 bunker bases along the way, usually in the stage of concreting, along with multiple in-place 68 cannons that will decimate any vehicles that come up that way. Warden partisans were also able to slip through a crack in the rocks to the side and hit anything from the side of the push, so it became difficult to really send anything up that way without heavy artillery support. Here we have the taking of Maidens. Maidens Vale was broken both times in the war by a battleship and supporting units launched from this bunker. Essentially, anytime we needed to take Maiden's Vale, which we only really broke 2 times to enter it into the contested state, we had to push across the bridge, secure the area, and then a battleship would come up, shell everything along the roadway, and then Maiden's Vale itself, and then would advance our infantry and tanks up this main road. As well as the in-place 68 and the bunker cores were very good defenses, they couldn't really stand up to the artillery power of a battleship.
Yeah, that sounds pretty rough.
Yes. Over here we have the Fall of Maidens. This is talking about when Maiden's Vale was recaptured by the Wardens. It was captured after multiple days of artillery duels and a total encirclement by tanks. I unfortunately was not there during the final loss of Maiden's Vale, but I was there of some of the few days beforehand, where they were doing large artillery duels. Typically, they set up artillery guns. If you look on the map, in the area of Checkpoint Bua, to shell across the river and clear that side of Maiden's Vale. They would also send a frigate through the riverways to shell Maiden's Vale some more, and eventually it got taken out after they continued the shelling and were able to completely cut off Maiden Vale's logistical line by using tanks. They surrounded it and shelled it into oblivion. Over here we have rail lines 2, a bit further northeast of here by the shoreline. Warden Railstorm Cannon was used to destroy the first concrete bunker complex in Lockheed. It was a very effective cannon, took out the bunker core and completely removed it, leaving Lockheed's bridge side defenseless for for about 1 or 2 days. But we did get our revenge because our men were able to get across and Mammon Rush the Railstorm Cannon, killing it and removing it from play.
I think there might be somebody at the town hall, so I'll meet you back there.
Okay. Fort Sanctum. If we look on our map and you see Sanctum all the way up in the northwest section, it was a very defensible position for the Wardens. It was a major stronghold for them in the region. Colonials had managed to take that location a couple times, but we always managed to get pushed out fairly soon after we took the location. They ended the war holding Sanctum with about 1 or 2 rows of concrete in the front of it. The main difficulty of Sanctum is the fact that the hills and the little roadway up means you can only send about 2 vehicles at a time, and the hill section gives them plenty of opportunities to send tons of AT down, especially ARC RPGs, which were very effective against our armor, making it incredibly difficult to push up that hill into the area and start breaking their stuff. We never were able to quite break it in the end, but that's just a little pride for the Wardens.
Well, it sounds like y'all really kicked some butt, though.
As this is just a sign that we had one of our wardens put up. They put it up mentioning a lot of I believe these are all the regiments that they noted for defending Marbin, so they were the main warden opposition that we were facing out here.
So that's how many? 1, 2, what, 4, 5, 6, or 5 regiments?
It's like 4 or 5 regiments, probably. Main ones dedicated to it. Alright, we're gonna go across the bridge and we're gonna continue the tour in Lockheed. Alright, these are signs about notable tanking. Our first sign here is for Grimlord and his vetted Spatha, destroying 30 enemy tanks, defending Lockheed before his tank was destroyed. That's some pretty impressive tanking skills right there.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Alright, the next notable sign that we have here is in honor of a Nemesis crew that lasted 10 plus hours, 20 armor kills, and countless friendly armor saved. This tank was retired before getting scrapped post-war. Unfortunately, the Lockheed Memorial Foundation did not have enough funds to purchase the tank before it got scrapped. It's a shame, in all honesty.
Yeah.
Over here are two newer exhibits. So we've got the Grave of the Damned, an empty grave to honor the 256,000 dead soldiers of the Warden Army who gave their lives for Marbin Hollow.
256,000?
Yes, 256,000 dead Warden soldiers.
Okay.
This is Blueberry Beach. This beach off the Lockheed Breakers was the spot of several Warden pooper, and barge landings, flanking the bridge. Their main objective was to try and push Tank Killer Ridge, or try and cause any damage or chaos that they could. They were sometimes effective, sometimes not very effective. At the height of our defensive ability, we did have bunkers covering the entire ridgeway, meaning they couldn't really get very far. Over here we have the lighthouse. A forward observation bunker in this location was used as an early warning system against incoming frigates and gunboats. It was not always online, but when it was very helpful, because you kind of need to... It's good to know if we're about to be shelled by very accurate 120 fire. It was... When it was active, it was also good to use as a spotter position in order to help see and sight in our 150 guns. Because if you can see the frigate with the spotter, then you can start trying to hit the frigate and make it go away faster.
Gotcha.
This is dedicated to the ships lost in war here. I'm not too sure about any large ships that died out here, but I do know most commonly it was typically barges and gunboats and smaller ships like that. A lot of times we didn't have these docks online a lot of the time. They were typically a priority target number 1 for Warden naval forces. But when we did have naval assets, we typically captured Warden gunboats, used them, but unfortunately, while they were in dock waiting for rearmament, as a shipment of mortars were on the way, they typically got stolen back by Warden partisans and sending them back to their own navy. This is a final stand. When Lockheed first fell, a small group of colonials held out in the safe house and fought to the bitter end. They held out in the safe house because the wardens could not take it out from the outside very easily. They had to go inside and hit a small box in there in order to actually kill it, meaning it was a great final location to make a last stand. Unfortunately, all the people fighting here did die, but they did buy time for a captured warden gunboat to make it out to seas and return to safe harbor in the baths.
I'm getting the town hall down. So the only way that you could really get
Lockheed.
into the
I'm going to adjust our tour routes so we don't run into the other tour guide real quickly. Well, we'll go
Yeah.
north and come back this way. Avengers of Lockheed triumphed against never-ending warden attacks. Very relevant, as you've seen before. We've been hit by the frigate. We've been hit by battle train, railstorm cannon. They've also sent SPGs here at one point, and then I believe there was also a battleship here that was shelling us at the same time a frigate was. So they really wanted this location, but we didn't want to give it up. We kept on fighting on. Rest in peace for everyone who fought. I want to have us do a little loop over here. This is Fight Fire. Fires in Lockheed were not very common, but still happened by gunboats or rocket strikes. This well kept fires under control. Was our main source for putting out fires, because we didn't have a fire truck. We could run down to the docks and get water, but it was farther than any other location, so just might as well grab it from the well. Most oftentimes, the wardens lit the safe house on fire rather than anything else. So, a lot of times it was doing little bucket runs from here to the safe house and back and forth until the fire was put out. I don't know which path they're doing right now. We'll cut this way first. Well, we'll do the upper section, loop back down. So this is the ruins of a greenhouse that was dedicated to showcasing the beautiful biodiversity of Lockheed. It was closed on Sundays. It's a beautiful greenhouse. This is some local graffiti.
So far, I've produced 8
Okay, Beatnik was here. Beatnik, as you saw earlier, was a Legends of Lockheed member. They were one of the last remaining Legends of Lockheed members. They are mainly good for. I'm sorry, wrong phrasing there. They were really good at delivering supplies. They delivered a whole lot of logistical supplies. Always gave us what we needed when we needed it, and always had extras left over in stockpiles in case we needed something immediately, or in case something went really, really wrong. Beatnik was also good at hunting down partisans in further back logi lines, running them over. All for Lockheed. To all those who served in the defense of Lockheed and held against all odds. Okay, this is the ramp. We have a replica put in right now, just to give you a visual representation of what it looked like. Lockheed was much different during the siege. Access to the town hall was limited at times to one metal ramp at this spot. As you can see, there's the replica of the metal ramp. Essentially, during the process of fortifying Lockheed, we needed to have a secondary fallback point in case the first line of defense fell at Tanquilla Ridge. The bunker bases, as mentioned before, went all the way down here and around the town base. Um, Unfortunately, I forgot to think about the fact that Logi drivers need to actually get to the town base in order to drop off their supplies. So eventually, someone came along. I think it was Nicole came along and ended up putting down the metal beam so that way Logi drivers could actually do their jobs and not be stopped by a builder like me. This is for the thousands of men who died in the town, both Warden and Collie, but we held on and kept it. We're going to rotate our way, as I think they should be done with the docks now. We'll hit this section first. Bingus Bunker Memorial Field. This location was notable because this was the location of the Bingus Bunker, a bunker complex by a small regiment that was continuously built up in this location. I believe in about a week they had to build it up every single day because the frigate kept coming in and dehusking the core. The defenses of the Bingus Bunker went around here, along the lower walls of the Lockheed town, out to the
Can
out
you
to
hold
the
on 1 second?
yes.
Can you hold on 1 second? My newborn needs a bottle. All right, sorry about that.
No, it's fine. It's good. Alright, where was I? Yes, the bunker defenses. Mostly tier 2 bunker defenses extending all the way to the southeast of Lockheed, around the lower rocks, and all the way up to the northern tip of Lockheed, up to that first dock that we visited. All of it was tier 2 stuff and was a common target to be shelled by the frigate. As mentioned before, they like to dehusk the bunker here. A lot of times, all that was left were the tier 2 trenches, making reconstruction fairly hard. Over here, this is our third and final building that survived the entirety of the war. This one's a bit more surprising as it was right next to the biggest bunker, meaning it likely got hit by stray rounds, but it still survived somehow. This is also the birthplace of Nicole. It's been in Nicole's family for about 6 generations or something around that number. I'm not entirely quite sure the exact number, but you've probably seen Nicole in the field of names.
Yep. Very personal for her.
Okay, when a Warden frigate was shelling the town hall, a single 150mm howitzer was able to send it back to port. It fired from about this position. It was part of the biggest bunker section of defense line, and it was very effective at what it was doing. There was 3 main gun batteries around Lockheed, but we only had about one of them active at a time. The first gun battery was over by the lighthouse. The second gun battery is this one here, and the third gun battery was the one in the backyard battery by the rail bridge and the storage depot. This is another sign by one of the wardens. This is dedicated to Lad Regiment, WNS Amanda and WNS Emma. Those were both of the warden ships that came in to shell Lockheed. This is also dedicated to the brave men who crewed both the ships to the very end. Both ships, I believe, survived the war and are going to continue on fighting. Yes, Lad was the main
All
regiment
right.
that came in and shelled us pretty much every day. They are the ones that reset the bunker cores at the biggest bunker and all the other bunker cores around Lockheed. This is the River of Blood. One frigate attempted to land troops on the dock, but the defenders rallied at the safe house and pushed the frigate back. Essentially, the frigate came in, leveled everything on the shoreline, most of the defenses in the section, and attempted a landing. We were able to notice it and rally some forces from the Tankula Ridge over to this location because it was at the same time that we were being pushed by vehicles. They managed to hold at the safe house and eventually push the wardens back to the docks itself, where it was pretty much gunning them down for free. During that time, the 150 cannon in the backyard battery was also sighted in properly and started shelling the frigate while it was docked here. Eventually, a tank was able to pull off from the bridge fight and come over here to start hitting the frigate, and all the infantry were grabbing grenades, tossing them on the frigate, and shooting it with any AT they happened to find. It managed to get the frigate to back off, and it was severely damaged, forcing the frigate out of commission for about 2 days, but unfortunately we were not able to kill the frigate. I'll cut left here. Yes, so this is where we're picking up. So why Lockheed? This is where we're getting back into the importance and relevance of Lockheed. If Lockheed fell, wardens would have access to the weak underside of Treasury and the ability to siege a war-exhausted baths. I'm going to have you look at your map here for a moment as we follow through this little activity. So if you look and you see Bewailing Fort, right to our side, near the Treasury, pretty much all the defenses at Bewailing Fort, pretty much all were PvE'd away, nothing there really. And then if you look at Treasury, the south side of Treasury was about a 2-layer defensive concrete. That's good as good to slow things down and like act as a little way of defense. But if we compare that to the north side of what Treasury was, it was about 8 layers of defenses thick on the north side by the vault area, and would end in a bridge battle, meaning that the south side was clearly the weaker side and very much less defended than the north end. So if wardens were able to get a coordinated, strong push through, they would likely be able to hit the Treasury fairly hard and possibly take it. If we continue looking at the map and we look south of Lockheed through the Salt Caps and Singing Serpents, that roadway all the way down, Salt Caps and Singing Serpents had pretty much no defenses built up. There was maybe about 1 or 2 speed bump bunkers through there of about tier 2 quality intended to slow enemy advances down, but not necessarily stop them. The Bass was already in a war-exhausted state. It was a heavily defended concrete bunker complex, but due to the length of the war, the defenses had begun to enter late-stage decay, meaning if the Wardens were able to get a coordinated large-scale attack through there fast, they would be able to break the concrete and cause severe damage to baths.
All right. So, yeah, and they could pretty much just cut them off at the treasury too.
Yes, so that's why Lockheed was important to hold. We got just two more stops here, I believe, three more stops. So here's the quest for fuel. Fuel was a major resource that was often in short supply. The warden shelling the containers did not help. Essentially, to get fuel here, it needed to be shipped up from Scurvyshire, which was a little bit of a journey, especially if you needed to carry each flatbed individually. And once the fuel containers got here, it was typically used for fueling up the tanks, the factory that was supplying the AMSUPs, along with fueling up the bunker defenses and anything else that needed fuel at the time. So we burned through fuel fairly quickly, and any fuel containers that we had sitting there long enough would often be the target of Warden artillery or the Warden frigate. Over here, on December 22nd, 2024, Lockheed had 0 shirts and under heavy assault, but would go on to win the entire region 12 hours later. The Wardens were doing a major push on us, but we managed to hold the line and hold out, and we pushed across the bridge. After securing the bridge, that was the same point where our own faction was planning a major operation, and that's where we sent the battleship up through Lockheed breakers to go save our boys defending the other side of the bridge and push all the way up to Maine's Vale. That was one of the 2 times that a battleship was used to break Maine's Vale. Over here is a little sign that you can read, just a little war story from some person.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, and this is our final stop of the tour today. We're going to have you dismount, and if you check your box, there's going to be 1 BMAT. Just grab it. Check your bike, sorry. Check your bike, there'll be 1 BMAT in your bike. I just need you
All
to
right.
note that for a second. Alright, so this is the Grave of the Lost, an empty grave to honor the 285,000 dead soldiers of the Colonial Legion who gave their lives for Marvin Hollow. In order to pay your respects, I would ask that you put your BMAT into the grave. There we go. Thank you for joining us on the Lockheed Memorial Tour. One final question is, can you look in the box and tell me if you understand the significance of the box at all?
Fatigues. That's what you spawn in with.
Exactly.
Okay. So basically, as soon as they spawned here, they pretty much died. Is what you're
Exactly.
telling me?
S Warden artillery at some points of the time were very, very fierce.
Well,
So basically, that's the end of our tour. Thank you for showing up here and joining us at the Lockheed War Memorial. We're only open during the remainder of the Resistance phase, so thank you for stopping by. Very limited time experience. If there's anyone else that you would recommend to come here, have them come here very much sooner than later. If there are no tour guides around, they can self-tour it, or you could guide them through it because you've been through the tour once before. You at least know where all the signs are.
right.
Yes.
Um, yeah, I appreciate you taking me through it, man. And I ain't gonna lie, like I said, I joined right after I literally got the game right after the war ended. So seeing that y'all are this dedicated makes me want to play even more.
Yes, the new war is starting soon.
That ain't supposed to start. It's not gonna. This we won.
We won. There is no more wars. That was the war to end
That's
all war.
yeah. There's no more. That was it.
We've settled all our differences.
Yeah. Now we're best friends.
Exactly.
Well, thank you, partner. I appreciate you.
Yes, thank you for coming out here and visiting Lockheed War Memorial.